Well, good day, viewers. Today we're working on a 2003 Garageman's Companion. It's got the 6.6 duramax and it won't start. It was dropped off a couple of hours ago. The engine is still warm and I've already tried to start it and it won't start. It just cranks like crazy. I imagine he's starting it with ether because I see a bottle of ether on the passenger seat. Now I did try priming it. There was a little error in the system. So I'm going to hook the scanner up and have a look at data parameters, see if we got high pressure fuel pressure. Okay, so I've ID'd the vehicle. It's an automatic. Let's check for codes in the engine control module first and foremost. All powertrain codes. See the airbag light, mass airflow sensor, circuit, vehicle speed circuit, transmission control system fault. Now I don't know if there's a current or history. Let's see if what's in history. Mass airflow and transmission control fault. Okay, let's clear codes. So who knows what's going on. And display codes one more time. Okay, we got a network issue or transmission code. We got to go into training to diagnose that, but we're going to look at the engine data. So I'm going to pull up a data list here. So the data parameters we're concerned about are engine speed. Ever since this update, the scanner is slow. And start coolant temperature is 44, intake air is 10. Glow plug voltage we don't care about. It's warm enough, it shouldn't need the glow plugs. Fuel rate and actual fuel rail pressure. Come on, where is that? Where'd that go? Actual fuel rail pressure in megapascals. I see it's at 0 right now, or 2. Desired fuel rail pressure. Come on. It's cold out here. I don't need the accelerator pedal. Alright, let's see what we got for fuel rail pressure. Desired is 790 and actual is 2. Very unusual that it's that low. Like it's lost its prime where we got a high pressure regulator problem. Got RPM, maximum cranking RPM of 217. It's commanding the injector pulse width, but we got no fuel pressure. Okay, that was milliamps. This is desired fuel rail pressure. Let's see that now. 40 megapascals and we got nothing. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get this running with some propane. Well, it's running now. I'll show you what I did. Put some propane in the air induction system here. Now we can get it in the shop at least. Well, that's like a defective pressure regulator. That's surging of pressure like that. But now I got another problem. I can't get it out of park. This is just I wonder what code was in the transmission. Boy, this is interesting. So here's the codes in the transmission controller. Bunch of pressure switches. I wonder if it's got a common power supply that's blown fuse or something like that. Wow. How come this is not scrolling? Maybe that's the screen, the full screen. But that doesn't explain why it won't come out of park. Got a brake switch problem or something? Oh boy. So I just got off the phone with the customer, and he's never experienced the transmission not shifting out of park, but he has just today had the shift inhibited or gear select inhibited because of a bunch of fault codes. Now this is the brake switch status in the transmission data, and right now it shows invalid no, but when I step on the brake it switches to invalid yes. So I got to find the brake switch inputs. I think they're inputs to the engine control module or the body control module. I got to find those and look at those. I think it's got a faulty brake switch that doesn't think you've stepped on the brake. So here's a list of the codes in the BCM: headlight codes, daytime running light codes, network codes. Yeah, those are all in history. Let's see what current codes we have. Class 2 data link malfunction. That's not good. That's a network code on the serial data wire. I think the brake switch is an input to the BCM. Let's clear the codes and see if they go away. Let's try moving the shifter. Nope, no luck. Okay, I'm going to look at some data here. So now I'm in the ABS looking at codes. You've got a right front wheel speed sensor circuit code. That's current. And the right front wheel speed sensor history. I couldn't find the brake switch data in the BCM, so I'm looking for it in the ABS module now. I think it is in the ABS module, so I'm going to look around in here now. So I only found one brake switch input, and I believe there's two. The brake switch status in the ABS shows off and on when I step on the brake, yet the transmission doesn't shift. So I'm going to look at a schematic. So I noticed the gear shift indicator is blank, so that's probably related to the problem too. So there's a couple of fuses involved in that shift interlock solenoid. You can see the brake switch is normally closed, but there's more to it than that because there's got a line around it, so there's probably two sets of contacts in that. Let's check this fuse, underhood fuse block, and this fuse block too. Check some fuses. So there's the truck in the shop. That brake transmission shift interlock fuse was good, and there's power to it. So I pulled the trim off the dash and disconnected the shift interlock lever here. But then I still had difficulty putting it in reverse or drive. The shifter is stiff as hell. Wow, I can't believe how stiff that is. Maybe it's just stiff. I'm going to try reconnecting. So talk about your perfect storm. We got no gear shift indicator and codes in the transmission computer that happened today apparently. Brake switch status invalid on the scan tool. But the whole reason why it wouldn't come out of reverse or out of park was because the back of the truck was backed into the snowbank and it was under pressure, but it's stiff as hell to shift this transmission. Like, you got to really pull on this gear shift lever. Well, let's have a look at some data parameters now. Power windows don't work. What else could go wrong with this? Power door locks don't work. Power windows don't work. Boy, oh boy. So I'm looking at see if there's any codes, display codes. So there's no codes that it's setting. I'm going to go into output controls, functional tests, output controls, and fuel pressure control. See if we can command the fuel pressure up higher or lower. So right now it's commanding it at 40 megapascals. There's actual fuel rail pressure and desired fuel rail pressure. 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. So desired and actual are following. But yet, if I shut it off and crank it, we got no fuel pressure. Let's have a look at that. Let's build a custom data list. Deselect everything, RPM, actual fuel rail, desired fuel rail, command, milliamps, desired, and fuel rate, and graphic. So, RPM, actual fuel rail pressure. So watch this one here compared to this one right here. So as you can see, once it's running, it stays running, but once it's shut off, let's pause this for a sec. We were making no fuel pressure, so is the pressure regulator at fault here? It sure seems like it. I wonder what happens if you disconnect the pressure regulator. So access to that fuel pressure regulator, which is way down here, is next to impossible without taking this harness out of the way. The transmission shifting problem. I checked the transmission fluid with it running, and there's no fluid showing on the dipstick. So this thing's got a multitude of issues going on. To diagnose this crank's no start condition, you're supposed to check return fuel flow rates, which is hugely time consuming. It's not a priming issue because I tried priming it and it didn't make any difference. Of course, when it's running, the high pressure pump has more volume, so it can overcome any substantial leaks in the system. Based on the fact that the valve covers are painted blue on this thing, I think it's had engine work done to it at some point. I see a piece of clear fuel line in there from the fuel filter housing to the FICM. So I'm going to put it up in the air and have a look at this vehicle generally speaking, because it's got a lot of concerns and I want to see if it's worthwhile spending this kind of money on it. So let's see where to start. Rocker panels are non-existent. Cab corners toast. Frame doesn't look too bad. It looks fairly solid, but the fuel lines are pretty rusty. No evidence of a fuel leak. I see the brake lines have been changed, but they didn't use a pre-engineered kit. They just ran nickel copper brake lines, and not very well, I might add. Now the tranny fluid is leaking from the tranny cooler line. It looks like it's been repaired at some point here, and it's now I'm not sure if that's why it's setting the pressure switch code, but it can set because of low brake or low tranny fluid. Now the transmission fluid is very dark. It almost looks like used engine oil. So that's a bad sign. You can see it's been leaking back on the cross member here. Passenger side rocker panel is no better. Cab mounts shot here. What else? Oh, I see the right wheel speed sensor wiring has been rubbing on the rim, so it needs a hub and bearing and wheel bearing assembly to fix the ABS. And we still don't know why it doesn't want to start when it's shut off and can't build fuel pressure. Brake hoses is tie wrapped to the upper control arm. It's not bolted on correctly. Oh well. So the bumper has been whacked at one time or another. And I see the airbag warning light is on. So it's probably got a crash sensor problem, which is common on these. But it needs a front bumper, needs the airbags fixed, needs the lower valence. Box is pretty beat up. Definitely been rode hard and put away wet. Tailgate's busted off, gone. Fenders are rotten up here. I think it's time to do some serious reflection on this vehicle. Tires are pretty decent, but you can put them on another truck. So it took 5 liters to fill the transmission, and the transmission fluid is very dark. Now if you look in here at this gear shift indicator, it's actually working. It's just the backlight is burnt out. See, it's in reverse, neutral, drive. Now outside you can't see that. Now none of the codes related to the transmission shifting came back. But we're going to have to discuss this with the customer. Let's see why this airbag warning light is on. So let's see what codes are in the airbag system. Probably a crash sensor code. Front end sensor 1. I think the 3/4 tons only have one front end sensor. So it likely needs a sensor or the wires are compromised to it. Well, I took the truck for a road test and the transmission seems to shift okay. But I'm not very pleased with the color of the transmission fluid. It's pretty dark, looks like used engine oil. This thing has a multitude of issues. I don't think there's any leaky fuel injectors. The engine oil is not contaminated, it's not over full. Pressure regulator, I don't think that's going to fix it. It seems to be responding, so I'm leaning more towards a high pressure pump. I'm going to ask somebody who works on these things more than I do what their opinion is. But low volume from the high pressure pump, especially at cranking RPMs, and this thing cranks over pretty fast and it's got 2 fresh batteries in it. I'm going to shut it off. And it won't restart. But it starts with propane, or I see that he's been using ether, which is sketchy, but whatever. If we go any further, I'll post a follow-up video.